President Trump is now in South Korea for the third and final leg of his trip across Asia. Over the past few hours, the president met with his South Korean counterpart as the two countries work to finalize a trade deal. The president was granted a series of gifts while there, including a replica of an historic gold crown, as well as the country's highest medal, which was said to be awarded to him for his continued role as a, quote, peacemaker on the Korean peninsula. President Trump also addressed a group of leaders and CEOs also gathered in South Korea for this year's Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit. You'll hear us mention it as APEC. That's where he spoke about his trip so far and previewed his upcoming high-stakes sit-down with Chinese leader Xi Jinping.
On this trip alone, I've signed groundbreaking agreements with Malaysia, Cambodia, Japan. Our deal with the Republic of Korea will be finalized very soon, like moments or very shortly thereafter. These agreements will be incredible victories for all of us because everyone is better off when we have stable partnerships, not plagued by chronic problems and imbalances. Probably you know that President Xi of China is coming tomorrow here, and we're going to be, I hope, making a deal. I think we're going to have a deal. I think it'll be a good deal for both. A lot of people are interested. They're also interested in what we're doing, but they're interested in that. I can tell you a lot. The world is watching, and I think we'll have something that's very exciting for everybody.
The world is watching because trade is going to stay at the top of the agenda for the president's meeting with Xi Jinping. But the Chinese leader will likely press Trump on another goal, trying to persuade the president to shift the U.S. position on independence for Taiwan. She is expected to push the president to say publicly that the U.S. opposes Taiwan's independence. That would be a change from the current stance of simply not supporting it. It would mark a major win for China if it happened, but Secretary of State Marco Rubio is dismissing any concerns that the president would make this concession to secure a trade deal, saying, quote, no one is contemplating that. President Trump, meanwhile, also brushed off the topic while speaking to reporters on Air Force One. Watch.
I don't know that we'll even speak about Taiwan. I'm not sure. I mean, he may want to ask about it.
Are you anticipating?
There's not that much to ask about it. Taiwan is Taiwan. We're bringing a lot of the Taiwan business back to the United States. I think within 2 years, I think we'll have 40 to 50% of the chip market. But that's happening, and I don't know. It's happening because of the tariffs. It's also happening because of the fact maybe they're a little bit concerned about things.
Want to bring in national political reporter for the Wall Street Journal, Ken Thomas. Ken, I think this whole trip has really been driving towards this meeting with the Chinese president. First of all, I guess the question is Taiwan still Taiwan in the way that the administration has always thought about, or is it a bargaining chip? And what is the White House posture behind the scenes for what they're hoping to come out of this trip with? Is it just a firm signed trade deal?
Yeah, I think Trump would like to brush aside the issue of Taiwan. It's been a very thorny issue for past administrations. I think right now, though, we do expect there to be some kind of framework agreement between the U.S. and China. The deal looks like it would involve the U.S. requesting China to crack down on these chemicals that help produce fentanyl. In return, the U.S. would lower some of the tariffs that they've imposed on China. We expect there also to be Chinese purchases of soybeans, which is an important issue. So we could see a de-escalation of sorts between the U.S. and China. But I think the larger context here is that Trump really wants to engage with Xi on a very high level. And you should think about this meeting really as the first of multiple meetings that we expect. We believe Trump is going to go to Beijing next year. At some point, we expect Xi to come to the U.S. in a follow-up meeting. So all of this is really laying the groundwork for what the administration hopes to be a series of high-level engagements between the two economic superpowers.
Yeah, and we love and Trump loves when he is the one that is in the driver's seat, finalizing these deals, doing these high-level meetings, and so driving towards that, and we will be looking ahead to it tomorrow. But otherwise, I think that this Asia trip has had very few tangibles come out of it, except for something that the president said on Air Force One that you and I were talking about before we got out here, which is when it comes to the potential of him running for a third term, which is prohibited by the Constitution. And yet he's sort of toyed with this and teased it. Allies have done the same. But on Air Force One, he said, it's pretty clear I'm not allowed to run. It's too bad. That's his quote. What does it say that is now being said by the president?
Yeah, he seemed to suggest that the 22nd Amendment does, in fact, prevent him from running for a third term. It came after Speaker Mike Johnson threw cold water on the issue and suggested that, there really wasn't any, leeway for the president here on that issue. I think the president has always liked to keep that third term option as leverage, as a way of preventing what often happens in a second term, which is that presidents become lame ducks. It was interesting on Air Force One. He also suggested that, there are real stars within the Republican Party waiting in the wings. He referred to, obviously, his Vice President J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio, who's traveling with him, as two people who would make a terrific team. So, he seems to be taking this third term card off the table. But, I think the red hats will probably continue.
Yeah, I think that's right. And we'll play a little later in the show, I believe, some of the conversations I had with senators about whether or not they are still open to the idea of a third term, because some of them shockingly are, despite the fact that the Constitution is clear on this. What I see in this is something, again, that you and I have talked about, which is that during the Veep stakes, this most recent time around, I think many allies and advisors to the president were clear with me and others that they weren't looking at this as a coronation of the future of MAGA. They were just picking a VP for right now. So the fact that Trump is now putting his imprimatur a little bit behind Vance, behind Rubio, potentially a combination of both, I think is telling as we track the 2028 tea leaves, because those are always in play, even at this early point in 2025. But